What did I just watch? Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watcher Pass, and I just got done watching Sweet Girl, which comes to Netflix on August 20th, 2021. So, long story short, I don't think you should watch this movie, but I'm going to tell you why and go into some of the reasons about the film. I'm going to talk about the film. I'm going to talk about two things I liked, four things I didn't like, and then talk about the ending. If you don't want spoilers, you want to kind of experience the film on your own. Good luck, but you shouldn't watch this because there are going to be spoilers. If you don't care about that stuff, if you just want to know what happens in the film, you want to know what I thought about it, then let's keep going. Sweet Girl stars Jason Momoa and Isabela Merced. Jason Momoa is the father. He's a every man except he's like 6'5" and built like a tank. But he plays the father. He's watching out for his daughter, who's played by Isabela Merced. He's a boxer. He's doing what he can to support his family and raise his daughter. And then his wife, played by Adria Arjona, gets cancer, and that causes this financial burden, health burden on the family. They try to stay positive, and they get some pretty good news towards the later part of her cancer treatment. So there's this branded pharmaceutical cancer drug put out by a company called Biopharm, and they get some news that there's going to be a generic version that's going to be much cheaper coming out pretty soon, and so they get pretty excited. But unfortunately, Biopharm pays the generic manufacturer to not release their drug, essentially allowing Biopharm to be the only drug in town. And that means that Jason Momoa can't afford the treatments for his wife. And this drug was supposed to be very good at helping her survive. And so his wife eventually dies. And Jason Momoa is understandably upset with Biopharm because of this situation that they put him in. So after his wife dies, he's understandably very upset. But he gets contacted by a reporter who is going to go live with a story about some bribery and some, and some shady dealings that Biopharm has. And Jason Momoa goes to meet up with him. I don't know why they had to meet up because I don't really think they needed Jason Momoa specifically, but it wouldn't be an interesting film if he's like, I'm going to publish a story. Do you have comment? And he says no, and then they publish a story. So he goes to meet up with this reporter. And during the meetup, the reporter gets stabbed by an assassin, and Jason Momoa fights the assassin and does a lot of damage to him. Like, I don't really know how the assassin survived Jason Momoa's punches and throws into the sides of a train, but the assassin survives. He hurts both Jason Momoa's daughter and Jason himself. And then 2 years later, after they recover, Jason Momoa then puts into motion this plan to get his revenge on Biopharm. And that's probably all you need to know about the film. So let's go into things I liked. The first thing is the characters. I really liked Jason Momoa and I liked Isabela Merced as the father and the daughter. They had a really fun dynamic together. I liked, especially after Jason, after the wife dies, I liked his daughter going in and supporting her father. He'd get very upset and she would kind of go and be kind of a voice of reason for him. And also it was really interesting. This will tie in with the second thing I liked about it, to see the two reactions. It was interesting to see his reaction to the cancer and the daughter's reaction. I think he was more concerned about, how they were going to pay for. He didn't do it. They both handled it well, but I think he was more concerned about the finances and trying to make sure his wife was better, and she seemed more concerned about just spending time with her mother and trying to make the best of the situation make the best of a terrible situation. So, I liked their characters, and then also when it becomes more of a thriller, it's interesting to see them because again, they both have a different way of approaching the revenge part and then the escape part, and it's interesting to see the two of them and their two different demeanors as they're doing this. The second thing I liked is the introduction, except for this very opening thriller part that I didn't really like. It starts with a bang, but it's not, there's no context, and also the effects aren't great at this part, so it really didn't do the movie a service, I think, to have an opening that's trying to be more exciting. I think it would have been better to have a quieter opening that then leads into the thriller part. And so I liked the introduction after the opening, because after this kind of like police chase type opening, it goes into the main story where it's just the family and kind of them living together, and then the mom getting cancer and then dealing with that. It's actually a pretty good introduction. I liked seeing Jason Momoa in more of an emotional, dramatic role. And Isabela Merced also did a really good job in this kind of more emotional role. So I liked that a lot. I really liked the introduction. I kind of wish they would have stayed in more of a dramatic part for this film, but it then goes into a thriller, and that's kind of where I didn't like the movie. So things I didn't like. I already touched on it, but the opening, like the very beginning police thriller opening, and then maybe this is because I didn't think the thriller part of this movie was that good, but the opening felt very different from then the more emotional introduction. The effects weren't that great. There was some light effects with the helicopter lights, and also I didn't have any context, so I didn't really understand why Jason Momoa was up on this building and there was a police person there, and then he jumps off into the water. Like, it just felt very random. And I don't think it then also didn't do a good job of then feeding into the emotional part, the dramatic aspect of the film, which I really did like. So I thought that they could take that first part out. The second thing I didn't love is the story, and that's mostly the story after the wife dies. Although there was some strange aspects about the story proper. I mean, for one, the film tries to really tie in with like a pharmaceutical companies are bad, they're charging too much, and there's a lot of information about that. I'm not going to get into like that kind of a debate over what pharmaceuticals should charge versus what's a fair price, and the generic versus branded pharmaceutical argument. All that is kind of too much for this little video review. But Jason Momoa puts all of his hope on this generic drug coming out. And to be fair, it seems like that drug would have cost a lot less, and he'd already talked about all the financial burdens he'd had. So I don't think they had much money to give, but they're still in the hospital and they're doing cancer treatment. And I assume that there's a lot of money involved in just being in the hospital, and the actual drug treatment itself is a significant portion, but probably not the largest portion of a multi-day, week, month cancer stay in a hospital like that. Putting everything on that pharmaceutical seemed like kind of a scapegoat for this overall situation. And I guess that's where they get then the thriller part of it. But it did seem odd that everything was landing on this generic pharmaceutical that had just been approved, that they didn't know about before, but now it's going to be the life-saving drug, and they weren't doing the branded drug before for cost reasons. I'm not sure. But that felt this news. And then when the film goes into kind of the thriller part, the story just seems very far-fetched. I'll get into some of that in the ending, but overall, like, the story itself just seems a little ridiculous, and it was weird to see Jason Momoa go from like everyman to seasoned hunter. And then there's some other aspects about the ending that I did not love. So the third thing I did not love is the twist. And so, spoilers, if you've gone this far, there's gonna be spoilers, but this is where you'll get the major spoilers. So partway through the film, you realize that Jason Momoa actually died at when he met up with the reporter. He died there. So all these scenes that we've been seeing Jason Momoa doing has actually been his daughter, played by Isabela Merced. She has just been handling all of the intrigue and the hunt up until that point. So Jason Momoa dies. His daughter then starts to plot some revenge against the biofarm CEO. And actually, this, to be fair, this made more sense, because then I understood like why it took 2 years, because she really had to train, and also why there was so much anger at biofarm specifically, and the CEO, because the CEO, we think, had ordered this assassin, and that had then killed her dad, which is then fueled her anger to go then take him out. But it just felt odd. Like, we'd seen this whole movie with Jason Momoa, and then trying to translate that into Isabela Merced's character didn't seem right, and also just felt strange. Like, some of the things that she did, I don't really know how. I don't remember how old she was at that point. Maybe like a 17-year-old girl, 18-year-old girl would be able to do some of these things and take on some of these large fighters that made more sense when Jason Momoa was kind of stumbling around and beating them up. But then when you've got someone who's like a third the weight and a third the size trying to do it, it felt a little off. I mean, they tried to they tried to make it so that she was a fighter, and she was a fighter, and she did train a little bit, but 2 years doesn't seem like enough to really gain the skills that she would have then needed to learn to be able to hunt down a CEO and then avoid an assassin, like a seasoned assassin, avoid him, and also find other characters. And also, they didn't really explain, how she was able to fund all of this, because it's not cheap to be able to do all of this. Maybe she had life insurance with her dad. I don't know. Maybe there was a GoFundMe, but uh, there's a lot of holes in the story and holes in the twist. And the fourth thing I didn't love is the ending, and I'm going to go into the ending now. Uh, so we've already gotten the twist. So Isabela Merced's character is the vengeful assassin, the one who took out the biofarm CEO. And I guess we're supposed to be sympathetic to her, but she did murder two people. Like the when she was at the banquet where she was able to take out the biofarm CEO, like she killed the bodyguard and also killed him. I mean, I guess they were fighting and the gun accidentally went off, but she put all this into motion. So she's killed two people. Then there's two more assassins that try to take her out, like seasoned assassins, and she kills both of them too. So her body count's at 4 at this point. Again, it was kind of tough to feel sympathy for her when she is like racking up a body count and like literally straight up murdering people. But so after she kills 4 people, and then also is kind of tangentially related to a 5th person dying, she's there when he dies, although a different assassin killed him. She finds out that a congressperson who has been kind of rallying against biopharm and big pharma is actually the one who ordered the hit so long ago. And so she then decides that this person has to pay. So she goes to the congressperson's office. I don't know how she was able to get in. Like, they didn't really have good security. She's just able to kind of waltz into the office. But in any event, she's there. And while she's there, the assassin, the main assassin, the one that took out her dad 2 years ago and has been kind of pursuing her and also killing people along the way, is there as well. And so they fight, and Isabela Merced and seasoned assassin go at each other. And it's actually, I mean, it's a decent fight. They eventually end up outside where she is, trying to hide from him, but he is kind of hearing where she is and shooting in those directions. It's actually a pretty tense scenario. So I liked that. But then they end up in this fountain in the middle of the congressperson's office area, and no one notices a gunfire, even though, I mean, it's silence, yes, but bullets do ricochet. They cause noise, and also they were fighting. No one notices this, and then they end up in the fountain, and no one notices this still. And the hitman almost drowns her. Like, he literally has her under the water. She passes out, or at least appears to pass out. And then she gets a message from her dad, in her mind, calling her his sweet girl and saying that she can do this. And then she pops up, and she just ate, she's like Popeye and she ate some spinach, or she just did some speed. She just goes up and overpowers Hitman, which again felt off. I mean, maybe when you're about to die, you do get some superhuman strength, but that seemed a little weird that she was unable to kind of overpower him. And then she stabs him, she stabs the shit out of him over and over and over again. Self-defense, yeah, but she kind of goes all in. So now her body count is 5. And I guess, to be fair, if you're keeping count, 2 non-self-defense, 3 self-defense, 5. So then she goes and confronts the congresswoman. And again, she straight up murdered someone in a congressperson's office building, and no one notices, and there's no cameras, there's no security. Seems a little off. But now she goes and confronts the congressperson after she straight up murders the hitman. And so while she's there, apparently the congresswoman doesn't have any bodyguards, even though she's ordering hits and things. She has no bodyguards. And so she confronts her, puts a knife to the congressperson's throat, and accuses her of ordering the hit and taking bribes from Biofarm and just being a bad congressperson in general. And the congressperson says, yeah, eventually, after the knife is at her throat, she says, Yes, I heard the hit. Yes, I took the bribes. You have to essentially, the person in the political game with the most money wins, and you have to have the most money. So yes, I did it. And then Isabela Merced just leaves. She's like, okay, great, thank you, and then leaves. You find out in the next sequence that she had stashed like clothes and a passport and a few things in a dumpster. And so she retrieves that. And you also find out that she was recording the conversation with the congressperson. So then she waits like a full day, like she waits till the next day to text the FBI agent the recording of the audio. Even though, like, this is a congresswoman who has put out hits on people to keep this quiet. And she just waits. I mean, if I was her, I would be texting that as soon as I could, because you don't know how much longer she's gonna be around. But apparently no hits come up for her. She gets her clothes, puts on some makeup, gets some Bitcoin, or either puts her money in Bitcoin or retrieves Bitcoin. It's unclear what she does. And then she texts the audio to the FBI agent, and then she gets on a plane somehow. There is FBI bulletins on her. Like, the FBI is literally tracking her. She has murdered 5 people, and she just somehow gets on a plane using like a disguise. That seems odd. Like, hey, I don't know how she was able to find a fake identity. It seemed she never mentioned it, and I don't know how easy or tough it is to get a fake identity and to get like something that would pass airport security muster. But she somehow does. And then she gets on a plane. Everyone is probably looking for her because she's murdered 5 people, and she just flies away. And then that's the end. And while the plane's taking off, there's some audio about like, oh, we received this. There's an investigation now in the congressperson, and I guess everything's okay. Which, again, I didn't really feel much sympathy for her because she did murder 5 people. To be fair, two people. She murdered 2 people in rage and 3 people in self-defense. So even if we just go with 2, she still murdered them. And I know she's upset with her family, like her dad being killed. Again, I don't really think that then justifies what she ended up doing. So that was Sweet Girl. The movie then just kind of ends with some audio, and then the movie being over. I really wanted to like it, especially I like Jason Momoa. I liked Isabela Merced. I liked the opening, but the rest of the movie just felt a little bit too off. If you really want to see a movie about like the medical system and a father trying to do everything he can for his family and going to extreme measures to try to get his family help, watch John Q. I haven't seen it in years, but I imagine it still holds up and it's still sadly relevant today. But that was a fantastic movie. Watch that. You can watch it on Showtime. It's currently on Showtime right now. And I didn't really like Sweet Girl. I don't think you should watch it. Didn't really speak to me. So that's Sweet Girl. It's on Netflix on August 20th, 2021. You can watch it if you want to, and maybe I'm wrong. You can watch it and tell me if you agree or disagree. But that's my review of Sweet Girl. If you liked this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.